If I ever write a memoir, I think I'll title it Things I Learned While Pretending Not to Notice. Because that's how it started. Not with a lipstick on the collar or some cliché perfume trail on his shirt. No. It started with the subtle shift of something familiar. A mug out of place. A scent in the hallway that didn't belong to my perfume. The housekeeper, Mariana, humming a tune I didn't teach her. Something soft, Spanish, seductive. She used to hum while she cleaned, but this was different. It was more intimate. Like the kind of humming you do after you've been kissed and you still taste it on your lips. I remember standing at the top of the stairs, watching her wipe down the granite counter with one hand, while the other, gloved and slow, ran across the marble like she was caressing it. My gut twisted. It's funny how you know. Long before you know. Jake, my husband of 7 years, was in the den, pretending to work on his laptop. I say pretending because I knew his fingers weren't typing. They were resting, idle. He was watching her. I couldn't see his face from where I stood, but I felt it like a vibration in the walls. My spine bristled. I took a step down, loud enough to be heard. The humming stopped. By the time I reached the kitchen, Jake was suddenly engrossed in an Excel sheet, and Mariana had turned away from the counter, sponge in hand, like she hadn't been fantasizing her way through a soap opera in our kitchen. We made small talk. I smiled. My voice even hit that familiar, polite register. The kind I use at board meetings when I'm surrounded by men who think my job title is just decorative. But I didn't forget that humming. Let me pause here and tell you who I am, so you don't make the mistake of assuming I'm just some perfect housewife archetype. My name is Elle Stratton. I'm 39, a creative director at one of the top interior design firms in the city. I can sketch a floor plan blindfolded, close a multi-million-dollar contract while applying lip gloss, and host a dinner party that gets written up in Seattle Luxe. And I used to believe in love like it was architecture. Build it strong, make it beautiful, trust that it will hold. But trust, I've learned, is flammable. I started noticing small things after that. Jake would joke about Mariana's impeccable work ethic. He'd linger a beat too long when handing her a check. One day I came home early and she was upstairs folding our laundry, which she never did before. I hadn't asked her to. And let me tell you, there's something violent about seeing your lace lingerie being folded by the woman you now suspect is sleeping with your husband. It wasn't the act itself, it was the audacity. Jake came home that night with takeout and a stupid grin like we were still in the Thursday date night era. I played along, because you don't interrogate a snake. You let it slither out of the grass before you strike. I needed confirmation, not intuition. So I started collecting. Camera logs, door entries, receipts. The laundry room suddenly became Mariana's favorite deep clean spot, and always when I was at my Pilates class. I placed a discreet camera behind the dryer vent. Nothing illegal, just motion-detected stills. What I found? A pair of men's shoes by the washer. Jake's. And a glimpse of Mariana's hand tugging something off camera, followed by a blur of skin. That's when I knew. And that's also when I stopped sleeping in our bedroom. Now, here's the thing about revenge. It needs to age like good bourbon. You don't act in the moment. You plan. You plot. You calculate the angles like you're drafting the blueprint to your own emotional liberation. And me? I was about to become an architect of chaos. The next morning, I greeted Mariana like nothing had happened and offered her a raise. She smiled, surprised. Jake kissed me on the cheek, clueless. Because neither of them realized yet, I don't get mad. I renovate. The best part about being underestimated is that people hand you their secrets like party favors. I spent the next 2 weeks laying bricks. Not metaphorical ones, real, digital, documented, time-stamped bricks. If this was going to collapse, I wanted it to fall like a controlled demolition. Fast, clean, undeniable. Step 1 was making Mariana comfortable. Too comfortable. I gave her a raise. Nothing dramatic, just enough to lower her guard. Told her she was, quote, 0, and asked her to take on a few extra duties. She nodded, polite as ever, but there was a flicker behind her eyes. She thought she was winning. And Jake? He was a fool. A smug, predictable, clumsy fool. The kind of man who thinks he's subtle when he brushes against a woman's waist as he walks by. The kind who gets off on the idea of sneaking around, but can't even keep his text tone discreet. By then, I'd already cloned his phone. A little device I got online, thanks to a Reddit thread that made me feel simultaneously empowered and unhinged. Every message, every photo, every "Miss you, hermosa" came to me in real time. Her emoji game was tragic. So were his grammar skills when sexting. They weren't just cheating, they were sloppy. I started documenting everything, like I was curating an exhibit called Infidelity for Dummies. There were videos, short, motion-triggered clips from the laundry room cam. One of her pulling down the shades. Another of Jake's hand reaching around her waist, his watch visible. Mariana looking up, lips parted like she was auditioning for a late-night cable drama. I emailed them all to a private address titled Project Renovation. And then I got strategic. Jake had a work trip coming up, 2 days in Portland, supposedly. I encouraged him to go, even packed his favorite cologne. The second he left, I replaced Mariana for the week. Told her my sister was coming into town and we'd handle the house ourselves. She looked surprised, maybe even annoyed. She asked if I wanted her to still come after hours. Cute. I said no, with a smile. Then I spent the next 48 hours redecorating. Not the house, the narrative. I contacted a lawyer, one who specialized in complex domestic exit strategies, aka rich people drama. I wasn't planning to file, not yet, but I wanted the framework ready. Then I made an appointment with a private investigator because while my evidence was spicy, it wasn't ironclad. I needed timestamps, locations, cross-references. And I had a very specific endgame. I wanted Mariana fired by Jake. I wanted him to break it off, confused and guilty, while still thinking he was in control. And then I would show him what it really looks like to lose everything. But to do that, I needed leverage he didn't know I had, which meant letting him lie to my face one more time. The night Jake got back from Portland, he walked through the door with a smug grin and a box of macarons, like sugar could cover the stench of betrayal. "Miss me?" he asked. I leaned in, kissed him softly, and whispered, "Always." And just like that, the demolition countdown began. Jake came back from Portland with macarons and a slightly sunburned neck. Funny, considering Portland was cloudy that week. "Must have been the long walks," he said, when I casually pointed it out. Sure, long walks. With Mariana? Or was there a new hobby I should know about, like screwing the help in daylight? But I smiled. I always smile. We had dinner that night like nothing had changed. Chicken marsala, his favorite wine. He talked about networking events and synergies, like the walking LinkedIn post he was. I nodded, asked questions, acted impressed. And then, while he was brushing his teeth upstairs, I took his phone from his jacket pocket and slipped it into the signal blocker bag I'd hidden in the pantry. A few seconds later, the clone synced. I had the full backup on my laptop by the time he came back down, asking where the remote was. "I think it's wedged in the couch," I said sweetly, while texting myself a few screenshots. Let me tell you, Jake has the creative depth of a parking cone. His messages to Mariana read like a desperate teenager's attempt at dirty talk. But Mariana, she played the role well. Just enough mystery, a few phrases in Spanish to keep him intrigued, and the occasional, "I hate sneaking around, but I love you." Love. That word sat on my screen like a rotting fruit. You might think I was devastated, that I cried into a silk pillow and listened to sad playlists. Number 1, I took notes, categorized screenshots, created a color-coded spreadsheet of every interaction I could link between them. And then I went a step further. I asked Mariana to deep clean the guest suite. Said we had friends coming in from out of town. "Oh, and could you come on Saturday instead of Friday? Jake and I will be out most of the afternoon." She nodded. Saturday morning, I set up 2 nanny cams, one in the air vent facing the bed, and one inside a fake potted plant on the dresser. Motion triggered, cloud storage, no margin for error. Then around noon, I took Jake out. Lunch, shopping, even a walk through a design exhibit. I played the role of the doting wife so well, he held my hand like we were still newlyweds. We came back around 4. Nothing seemed off, until I checked the footage that night. And there it was. 2:43 p.m. Mariana enters the guest suite. She's wearing the same uniform, gloves. She pulls out the vacuum, then stops. A moment later, she lifts her phone, smiles. 2 minutes later, Jake walks in from the back entrance. They kiss, sloppily, like high schoolers in a closet. No shame, no fear. I watched them on my laptop screen, in high definition, like it was just another episode of a show I'd seen coming for seasons. But I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Because now I had what I needed. The next morning, I asked Jake if we should hire Mariana full-time. "She seems really invested in the house," I said, sipping my coffee. He blinked, surprised. Sure, yeah, if that's what you want." It was, because I wanted her exactly where I could see her, right before I erased her from both our lives. The trick to revenge is patience. You want to scorch the earth, sure, but sometimes it's far more satisfying to salt it first, so nothing grows back. So I kept smiling. I told Jake I was thrilled about bringing Mariana on full-time, gushed about her attention to detail, her discretion, her deep understanding of our space. Every word I said felt like a scalpel cutting a little deeper into the farce he thought was still secret. I even suggested she join us for dinner one night, just to celebrate the new arrangement. Jake nearly choked on his espresso. "Oh, come on," I teased. "She's part of the family now." He laughed nervously, then kissed my cheek like I was the most gullible woman on earth. Little did he know, I had already scheduled a meeting with our home security provider to upgrade our system. I wanted to install motion sensors and video backup for peace of mind, I said, claiming we had some thefts in the neighborhood. Jake agreed, oblivious. Mariana didn't even blink. That same day, I also visited our financial advisor. Quietly shifted some accounts. Moved my name off of things that were shared and onto things I could protect. Set up a private trust, anonymous, secure, and completely in my control. Revenge isn't just about exposing people. It's about protecting yourself for the fallout. 2 weeks passed. Mariana was now a permanent fixture in our house, moving through rooms like she owned them. She wore lighter makeup, curled her hair differently. Jake started coming home earlier, showering more. I could feel the delusion thickening between them like a fog. She thought she was ascending. He thought he was balancing. I thought how poetic it would be when they both realized the floor beneath them was missing. And then I got the final piece. The private investigator I hired, bless him, was thorough. He sent me an encrypted folder filled with photos, timestamps, and one glorious surprise. Apparently, Mariana wasn't just sleeping with Jake. She had a boyfriend. One who picked her up every other Thursday night in a dusty blue Toyota Corolla with a Lyft sticker on the back. A boyfriend she'd been seeing for over a year. A man Jake would absolutely not recognize, but whose name I now had. Christian. He wasn't rich, but he was honest, and very, very unaware. So I reached out to Christian, under a fake name, of course. Just a woman concerned about a potential STI exposure who had a few questions. We met at a coffee shop. He was sweet, soft-spoken, loved Mariana, thought she worked for a nice couple. I showed him a photo, a still from the nanny cam, blurred just enough to not break any privacy laws, but sharp enough to show her with Jake, in our guest room. Christian went pale. "She told me she worked for an old lady," he whispered. I let him sit with that for a moment. Then I passed him a folder of everything I'd gathered. "I'm not asking you to do anything illegal," I said. "Just be honest with her. Tell her what you saw, what you know." He nodded slowly. "She lied to both of us." And that was the moment I knew the game had officially changed. 3 days later, Mariana quit, without notice. Jake came home to a scrawled note on the counter and no explanation. "I don't get it," he muttered, genuinely confused. "She just disappeared." I sipped my wine, shrugged, and said, "Strange. Maybe she realized she didn't belong here after all." He didn't know that I'd already sent her a little gift, a flash drive, with everything on it, including one line typed neatly on the final slide. "Hope the lies were worth it. The woman whose house you tried to steal." Jake stood in the kitchen holding Mariana's goodbye note like it was written in ancient Greek. One flimsy scrap of paper, all caps, rushed ink. "I can't do this. Don't contact me." He looked like a man whose mistress had ghosted him mid-daydream, which, to be fair, she had. He kept pacing. "She didn't even say why." "She didn't owe you anything," I said flatly, slicing a peach like it was his neck. He didn't respond. I watched him all afternoon. He kept checking his phone, refreshing messages, walking to the window like she might appear and explain herself. Poor baby. He didn't know she'd already cried in a gas station parking lot with Christian, holding my folder like it was a crucifix. I didn't want Mariana destroyed, just gone. And gone she was. Now it was Jake's turn. That week, he was tense, jumpy, like a teenager who'd gotten away with something but couldn't enjoy it anymore. He'd snap at the news, get irritated over Wi-Fi speed, accuse the mailman of losing something that never existed. He even tried to initiate sex again. That was bold. "I'm tired," I said, feigning a yawn. "You've been distant lately." He looked wounded, confused, maybe a little ashamed. That last one was new. Then came the dinner. Friday night, candlelit, romantic, all very Hail Mary. He poured wine like he was trying to seduce me back into a version of us that never really existed. "I've been distracted," he admitted. "Work's been insane." "Oh? Not the housekeeper?" "I'm sorry," he said, "for being so disconnected." I leaned forward slowly, met his eyes. "Disconnected is one word," I replied, "but betrayal feels more accurate." His fork froze mid-air. I smiled. "Don't worry," I added, swirling my wine. "I'm not mad. Just reevaluating." The next morning, Jake found an envelope on his desk labeled, "For your records." Inside, a single photo. Him and Mariana, mid-kiss, in my guest room. No note, no signature, just one picture. Enough to make a man sweat through his silk shirt. He didn't say anything for a full day. Not a word, not a question, not a breath of denial. He stared at the envelope like it might explode if he opened it again, which, in a way, it already had. I watched him flinch every time the doorbell rang, every time his phone buzzed. Guilt made him paranoid, and paranoia made him sloppy. He started deleting messages. I knew because my clone app went suspiciously quiet. A man with nothing to hide doesn't start erasing history. But Jake? He was in full cleanup mode. I let him believe he had a chance. That weekend, I staged my next move. We had a dinner party. Close friends, 2 couples, wine and charcuterie, and the illusion of a functioning marriage. Jake tried hard. He refilled glasses, laughed at jokes he didn't understand, even made a toast. "To the woman who keeps this house running," he said, raising his glass toward me. I smiled. "You mean Mariana?" The room went silent. Then someone chuckled awkwardly, assuming it was a joke. It wasn't. Jake's eyes flicked toward me, panic rising behind his glass. I changed the subject immediately, let him squirm without making a scene. That's the thing about people like Jake. They fear public shame more than private sin. The next day, I accidentally left my laptop open on the kitchen table with a folder titled Legal Notes. Nothing incriminating, just enough to start a spiral. I watched him hover. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. Just seeing the title was enough to ruin his breakfast. That afternoon, I got a call from our financial advisor. "Jake's trying to access the shared portfolio," she said. "Do you want to approve that?" "Deny," I replied. "Let him wonder why." That night, I kissed him on the cheek before bed and whispered, "Sweet dreams." He didn't sleep a wink. I know, because I was awake too, watching our motion cameras from my phone as he wandered the house like a man already exiled from it. Jake started unraveling in pieces, not loud ones. No outbursts, no accusations, just little malfunctions. The forgotten wallet, the missed meetings, the day he left his car running in the driveway for 45 minutes because he just needed a minute before coming inside. I never asked questions. That's what scared him most. He began watching me like I was the dangerous one. Smart man, late but smart. A week after the dinner party, I scheduled a full home appraisal, said I was thinking about a renovation loan. Jake nodded, confused but trying to stay cool. "Anything big?" "Foundation level," I said, locking eyes with him. "Just need to know what's really underneath everything." He didn't speak after that. I updated my will, moved valuables to a safety deposit box, put our backup hard drive into storage, replaced all the joint passwords. Then I made a call to his boss. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet tip that maybe Jake's recent work trips weren't as client-focused as his report suggested. I knew the company policy, strict on conduct. And Jake had sent Mariana flowers to the office using his corporate card. Sloppy, so damn sloppy. He came home 2 days later with that look. "I got flagged for expense misuse," he said, voice low. I sipped my tea. "That's strange." "They said someone sent photos." "Oh?" He watched me like a dog trying to smell a trap. "Did you—" "Jake," I looked up, dead calm. "Are you asking if I sent proof of your affair to your boss?" He froze. I smiled. "Because if you are, you should be very careful what I say next." The next morning, Jake's email dinged with a calendar invite. Meeting with Elle, 30 minutes, location, guest room. When he walked in, he found me sitting at the foot of the bed. Beside me, a folder, labeled Full Inventory, What You're About to Lose. Jake walked into the guest room like it was a courtroom. I had the lights dimmed, the windows open, and one chair set opposite me, strategically placed, no escape. He sat slowly, eyeing the folder between us. "What's this?" he asked, voice cautious. "An audit," I replied, calm as the sea before a hurricane. Inside the folder were 3 labeled tabs. 1, financial damage. 2, personal property. 3, moral bankruptcy, bonus content. He flipped through the first tab. Bank transfers, expense reports, digital receipts, all color-coded. I'd even included a graph. Jake loved graphs. Not so much when they showed his affair peaking during my birthday week. The second tab detailed the joint assets I was in the process of dissolving. The house title? Already filed for transfer. Our vacation home? Sold. My name wasn't on the deed, but the buyer, my cousin, was generous enough to pay fast and low. And that final tab? Photos. Screenshots. Mariana in our bed. Mariana in our laundry room. Mariana in his arms. I watched his face cycle through shame, confusion, and rage. Rage not at me, but at the situation he no longer controlled. "I can explain," he said finally. "Jake," I replied, my voice silk over steel. "This isn't a negotiation. This is a gift." His brows furrowed. "You're getting a warning," I continued. "A quiet divorce. No scorched earth, no social media leaks, no lawsuits. If you sign the papers and leave with dignity. And if I don't? Then the bonus content becomes public, including a curious little file labeled tax fraud adjacent." His mouth dropped. "You wouldn't." I leaned in. "You handed me the shovel, Jake. I just decided where to dig." He didn't respond. But later that night, I heard the sound of boxes being taped. Jake was finally packing. Too bad the last surprise hadn't even arrived yet. I'd scheduled it for morning delivery. A housewarming gift. For the apartment he was moving into. From the housekeeper. Jake left just after sunrise. 1 duffel bag, 1 box. 1 look back at a life he thought he controlled. He didn't say goodbye. Fine by me. Because 10 minutes after he shut the door behind him, the final piece of my plan slid into place like the last note in a requiem. The gift was delivered to his new apartment by courier. Wrapped in white tissue paper, placed carefully inside a Tiffany blue box. Not actual Tiffany, of course. I have style, not pity. Inside, a set of monogrammed towels. 1 embroidered with J, the other with M. Below them, a handwritten note. "For the next time you pretend your mess doesn't stain everyone else." He texted me within an hour. "Jake, what is this supposed to mean?" Me. "Just a little something to clean up after yourself." No response. He tried calling that night. I let it ring. He emailed the next day, asking if there was any hope of repairing what we had. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. What we had was drywall over rot, veneer over termites. And now that I'd stripped it down to the studs, there was nothing left to salvage. I replied once, short, clean. Hope isn't a renovation tool. 2 days later, his boss called me. Politely informed me Jake was being placed on a leave of absence while they reviewed his expense violations. I played the surprised wife with perfect precision. "Oh no," I said. "I hope everything turns out okay for him." I hung up, poured a glass of wine, and toasted the silence. It had taken time, precision, patience. But my house was finally clean. 3 weeks later, I hosted a garden brunch. Friends, fresh roses, mimosas, laughter. One of my guests leaned in and said, "You seem lighter, like you've cleared something out." I smiled. "Oh, I have," I said. "You redecorate?" I sipped my drink, watching the sun hit the glass just right. "No," I said. "I just took out the trash." It's been 4 months. The rooms feel bigger now. Not because Jake's things are gone, though yes, the suits, the collectible whiskey bottles, the cufflinks he never cleaned, all boxed and donated, but because the air isn't heavy anymore. There's no tiptoeing around invisible tension, no closed doors, no lingering scent of someone else's mistake. Just space. Honest, open space. People keep asking how I stayed so calm. How did you not lose your mind? Why didn't you scream, throw things, slash his tires? Simple. Because that would have made me the villain in his story. And I'm not here to play his story anymore. I rewrote the script. He lit the match, I built the fire pit. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago. Clean, efficient, and without appeal. Because Jake knew better. My lawyer was surgical. My evidence airtight. He walked away with half of what he expected, and none of the dignity he tried so hard to fake. And me? I redecorated. The guest room, the scene of their betrayal, is now my studio. Plants, light, books stacked like art. The bed? Gone. The mattress? Donated. That chapter has been exfoliated. I took a trip to Tulum last month, solo, unapologetic. I didn't post about it, didn't perform joy for the sake of optics. I just existed. I danced barefoot on tile floors and drank cocktails under string lights and flirted with a French architect who said my laugh made him forget what he was saying. When I told him I was recently divorced, he smiled and said, "Then this must be your after." Yes, this is my after. I don't check Jake's socials. I don't Google Mariana. I assume she's licking wounds and he's busy rebranding himself as the misunderstood man who lost everything. But me? I didn't lose. I cleared the space. And now, every inch of my life is mine again.